Chapter 130. The Plague of Locusts. Jinan City. Within the Divine Martial King's study. King Shenwu was sitting in front of his bookcase, looking at a piece of information in his hands. In front of him stood a group of strategists and Sima Changkong. As he watched, King Shenwu's eyes narrowed slightly. This batch of battle reports, the 6th Legion's great victory. The Divine Martial King frowned. Yes, Gao Xianzi led the troops, and was the most ferocious, and every step is a dangerous move, but successive victories, greatly breaking Emperor Danying's most stubborn legion. Sima Changkong smiled bitterly. The most stubborn legion. The Divine Martial King frowned slightly. The other legion leaders were eager to take credit, and fearing that this legion would be delayed, they let it go to Gao Xianzi. Sima Changkong laughed bitterly. Throwing the difficult bones to Gao Xianzi, and they go for the meat. Good, very good, the Divine Martial King said coldly. However, Gao Xianzi is the one who set up a clever plan to exterminate this stubborn legion the fastest. Dang, that's extraordinary, Sima Changkong exclaimed. Gao Xianzi. The Divine Martial King revealed a complex, dry smile. Laughing, the Divine Martial King's gaze became sharp. Pass this battle report to the other legion leaders to go all day long. They talk about their primus inter pares in front of me. Let them see, an outsider in 8th realm, what has been achieved in these 10 days. HMPH, yes, Sima Changkong answered. Merits must be rewarded. Bestow Gao Xianzi with 100,000 top-grade spirit stones, 1 spirit jade ruyi, 1 Yuanying sword, and below Yuanying, 100 pills of all kinds, Divine Martial King said indifferently. Giving so much. A schemer instantly raised his head in shock. The Divine Martial King twisted his head and looked coldly, and that schemer instantly didn't dare to speak. Your batch of ghosts. Are they beginning to plague the enemy army? The Divine Martial King looked towards Sima Changkong. Soon, the battlefield is getting closer and closer to Liu Yang's Northwatch City. It's almost time, Sima Changkong nodded. Northwatch City. Outside the city, in the middle of the military camp, a general was drumming up morale. Brothers, how has the Emperor treated us? Without the Emperor, could we be here today? In Yingju, I only recognize the Emperor. The Long Shenwu army on the other side, they are the stormtroopers. We only want to guard our home. This was originally our Yingju's, originally the great Ying dynasties, now, back in the Emperor's hands. What's wrong with that? Earlier on the battlefield, our brothers, all of them died. Were there any of you brothers? That general yelled. There are. The entire army roared in unison. Who killed our brothers? Dragon God Marshals invading army. They killed our brothers. Do we want revenge? Yes. Grab your swords and prepare to follow me to do your duty for our country and avenge our brothers. Revenge, revenge, revenge. The shouts continued, and morale was finally drummed up. After the whole army shouted for a while, not far away, a group of ghostly blue light group appeared steeply. Once that light group appeared, the generals who had just shouted stopped at once. Big brother. The previous general looked at a silhouette in the mass of light in surprise. Senior brother. Elder brother. Brother. There was a commotion in the barracks, covered by the fact that within that ghostly blue mass of light were all the former brothers of the generals on the schoolyard. Aren't you guys dead? Ghosts. What's going on? The general said blankly. A group of ghosts avoided the blood aura of the entire army and carefully arrived on top of the high platform on the schoolyard. Big brother, why haven't you gone to reincarnation? We're going to avenge your death soon, the general called out with red eyes. Revenge? Who are you avenging? Who are you selling your life to? The leader ghost's face showed bitterness. What do you mean? We all sold our lives for the Emperor. We sold our lives for the great Ying dynasty. We defied life and death to meet the great Jin dynasty. We died in battle, but after we died, "We were sold by the emperor," the leader ghost said bitterly. "What do you mean?" The general was surprised. The ghost recounted the events of the past. In the army, countless generals listened with wide eyes. Tada! A junior soldier's longsword fell to the ground. Everyone's breath caught. We fought to the death, and in the end, none of the transformed ghosts were allowed to live in peace, and were given to the demons by the emperor to be refined as fertilizer. The 100 longevity peaches, rewarded by the emperor, it turns out that they were all refined with the ghosts of our brothers. What I ate in the past were the ghosts of my brothers, my elder brother's ghost. Above the schoolyard, everyone's face was ashen. Your Majesty, what have we done wrong? But treat us like this, to fight to the death for you, only to end up with your form and spirit destroyed. The ghosts cried out, Toda, Toklang. A series of sounds of swords falling to the ground, going to fight to the death for the great Ying dynasty. Oh, was it worth it? And the 100 longevity peach. But the ghosts of the brothers who ate it, no, there were living people sent as fertilizer. Eating the living, I'm not fighting anymore. I'm not fighting either. This sound of disheveledness came from all the military camps in all directions. In Northwatch City, in Liu Yang's study, a group of strategists stood in front of him. I was going to set up a military formation in Beiwang City, but how could this happen? A schemer said with an ugly face. It's Ancient Sea, Your Majesty. News came from all over the world. The ghosts were saved by Ancient Sea. Ancient Sea released the ghosts and messed up my army. Now, the army around North Lookout City, only 30% of the army is still loyal to Your Majesty. 70% of the army have turned against each other and surrendered to the Genin army. A group of strategists analysed with ugly faces. Liu Yong took a deep breath. His face was gloomy for a while. At this moment, he suddenly had an impulse to need Mo Yike. If Mo Yike was there, how good he would help me in Alice, instead of a group of strategists in front of him, who would only complain and be alarmed. Gu Hai, Ancient Sea again. Liu Yang's face showed a scowl. Your Majesty, nowadays, Northwatch City's military is disorganized. We'd better return to Yingdu as soon as possible. Yes, Your Majesty. If we go back to Yingdu, Your Majesty can mobilize the Qi of a dynasty. No one can do anything about the Emperor. The strategists urged, go back to Yingdu. That would formally announce to the world that one's imperial expedition this time has completely failed, and that one has gone back to cowering Yingdu. But now, is there any victory to speak of? King Liu Yong think about the beginning. He has Mo Yika, have broken army, have millions of bronze people, have Aoshan Dragon army, have Mr. Dongfang, have 10 million army, the will of the people, the army mighty, but is all destroyed by the Ancient Sea. All destroyed. Ancient Sea, an Ancient Sea, actually made himself in such a sorry state. Liu Yang's fists were clenched, and for the first time, he began to regret not listening to Mo Yika's words and sending the Ensheng people to assassinate Gu Hai. Of course, more than anything else, it was resentment that Gu Hai had done such damage to himself. Your Majesty, a group of strategists advised, go back to Yingdu, Liu Yong said with a wave of resentment. Genin City, Marshal, Liu Yong has finally retreated. These military souls, saved by Gu Hai, are really worth 1,000 armies. Liu Yang's army, the heart of the army is lost. The hearts of the people are not showing. The great Ying dynasty is finished. Sima Changkong laughed. Back to Yingdu. HMPH. The entire army continues to drive forward. Chase. King Shenwu laughed. Yes. On top of the white clouds flying boat, Gu Hai used the qi from the divine foothills imperial dynasty to sacrifice the heavenly Zhen divine seal, and after doing so, the qi was directly transmitted back to the 9-5 islands. During this period of time, The Earth Dragon vein within the Heavenly Zhen divine seal was finally completely refined with a mournful cry. The Earth Dragon vein closed its eyes and hovered within the Heavenly Zhen divine seal. Gu Hai's mind sank into the interior, but the Earth Dragon vein's eyes opened steeply, as if Gu Hai's consciousness was able to control it. And at this moment, it was peaceful and calm. The group of Da Hon officials on the flying boat learnt to maneuver the flying boat, and at the same time, a few people who recognized the way were found in Jinan City and were responsible for driving the flying boat. Your Majesty. That person who recognized the road said that it's almost here. An official looked at Gu Hai respectfully. Gu Hai nodded. No, Master. There's a situation in Foothill God City. Let's slow down. Gu Chen immediately changed his face. Oh. Gu Hai walked to the front of the deck. The speed of the flying boat slowed down. Flying amongst the clouds, he looked downwards. There was still some distance away from Foothill God City, but at this moment, the endless four directions had all changed. Above the earth, there were thousands of miles of bare ground. In the past, it was lush and green, with countless vegetation, but at this moment, all that was left was withered rocks and yellow soil. As far as the eye could see, it was scorched. Where are the plants? The officials were surprised. Cluck 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 cluck. A burst of eerie sounds came from all directions. Gu Hai fixed his eyes on it, but it was a barren land that was crawling with red locusts. Locusts? Gu Hai frowned slightly. The locusts were gnawing on some tree roots, and wherever plants were concerned, all of them were gnawed. No, not only plants. Gu Hai also saw a group of locusts chasing a cheetah in the distance. That cheetah had just run not more than a few times before it was covered by the overwhelming number of locusts, and then collapsed with a miserable scream, and before long, only a pile of withered bones was left. At a glance, on top of this barren land, but there were countless withered bones falling in all directions in general. Keep going, Gu Hai said in a deep voice. The flying boat continued to fly. However, the further one flew towards Foothill God City, the more locusts there were, covering the sky and rolling locusts. In addition to ordinary locusts, there were also ones as big as a foot long, or even a zhong in size, covering the sky. Flying all over the sky, an army of rolling locusts, spreading in all directions. Gu Hai saw that a group of locusts in the distance was spitting on the armor of the divine Foothill Imperial Dynasty's army, apparently eating all of the people and spitting out the armor that they didn't eat only. Even the bones were gnawed together. The grand formation of Divine False City was open, but above the formation, it was crawling with locusts, gnawing on the formation, and above the four sides of the city wall, it was also crawling with locusts. 10,000 miles of red earth was full of locusts. The ones flying in the sky, the ones crawling on the ground. The scalp of the great Han officials looked numb, under a cold sweat. The chi of the Foothill God City was gone. Some of the people in the city could vaguely be seen through the big formation. And at this moment, each of them had a look of horror, with despair in their eyes. Locusts were passing through, and not an inch of grass was left to grow.